So now we've looked at data behaviors and actions. We'll move on to meshes and a couple of other things. Mesh selectors, I'm pretty sure I explained in the other video. Basically, same conditions set up as behaviors. The only difference is you tick what meshes are visible here. As long as those conditions met, those meshes will be visible. So all your rect conditions, you get more and more extravagant, whatever. Go crazy with your setups. You can use conditions with random variables with actions to do random mesh selection. So you have a selector variable, and then you use a action on the startup to set it randomly, and then based on what that's set to, you can based on what that's set to, use a mesh selector to change what's visible. So you might have a particular hat that's visible between 1 and 3 and another different hat between 3 and 5, but that's basically how people achieve random infantry setups and stuff like that. You can do the same for vehicles if you wanted like fuel tanks to be random on the back or something. Physics rigs, a different video together. Microgroups I explained. Level of detail I'm pretty sure I explained as well. Just as a recap, basically you've got 4 different distance settings. You can specify the distance there. That's meters in game. Rough rule of thumb, infantry are 2 meters high. So that's 12.5 infantry away. If you want to work that out. Basically you go, okay, I want it visible at this distance, this distance, this distance, and this distance, and then it'll become visible at those distances. If I go to here, as you'll see, it'll disappear because I've specified that it's only visible from 250 meters away. And then as I go, okay, getting closer and closer, and here's it's visible again because I'm close enough. See, if I specify that it wasn't visible from that distance away, as you can see there it disappears. So I just change these to like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, just for demonstration's sake. And then I'll go off on. So we're within 10 meters. Oh wow, that's 20 meters there. Then we'll go 30 meters out, it becomes visible again. But you have the idea. I don't think this one's scaled properly. But it's something to play around with. Higher level of detail stuff like might only be visible from a short range. That's a really long 10 meters. Maybe it's not working. We have to play. Nope. Oh, you can work it out. Play around with it. Animation is not something to build with. Okay, so motion trees are can be fairly complex. They can be simplified a lot. I can sit here with this motion tree and go, okay, well I don't need half of this stuff, so I'll get rid of it. What's our move animation? That's our idle animation. What's our move? Movement move. Okay, so that doesn't give me much detail. The ones of main interest here are obviously movement and your actual weapons. In this case, if you have a look, they've separated weapons into their own little mini tree. I don't think any of them are trigger for startup. Hatches for the 50 cal, which goes on top. Not for us to worry about at the moment. Okay, so this is pretty much what we want to have a look at here. Why they even have... You don't need these there. Unless you've got a recoil animation for firing, you don't need this. This is basically what you need for setting up your guns. So you have a main node with your, just to keep it separate from everything else, you have a horizontal node and a vertical node. These need to be both motion nodes because you're using animations. They also both need to be startup nodes. What you do is you have a look here in animation properties, and you want your horizontal one to be set to your horizontal motion. So let's have a look at our... Oh look, it moved horizontally already. Okay, so we want loop just because it can go all the way around and it's constantly playing. Basically, it won't stop playing. Start time and end time, because we're going to go from start of the animation to finish the animation. 100% play time, speed rather, doesn't make much difference, and blends percentage doesn't make much difference in this case. So modify, this is where we choose what variable controls it. As you can see here, we have access to all the variables but none of our states or events. This is because you can't... Basically, the animations can be split up based on your variable into a different set of scales. You can't set it based on states for that reason. Because a state can't modify how the animation is being played, because remember, that's not a condition, it's a modifier. Any states that would trigger the animation itself will be down here. Whereas because we want our horizontal and vertical to be constantly monitored and constantly changed as soon as it picks up a new target, that turret needs to move, it's set as a modifier. So in this case we're using 75mm horizontal because that's what's already there. So and we've set it to our horizontal turret animation. Okay, so we've got three types of modes. We've got absolute time, speed scale and blend scale. So absolute time means that as the variable changes, the animation will be played based on that change. So if I make changes here, the animation is played. As the change is positive, the animation goes forward. As the change is negative, animation is reversed. You can change that direction by changing that to negative. And now the way in which the animation is played in reverse, but I don't want that because that's... Actually, yes I do, that's how I want it. Because I want, as it's going negative it turns left, as it's going positive it turns right, which is exactly how I want it. The other options, speed scale and blend scale, are used for movement. So if your speed scale, use speed scale with velocity for wheels, etc., to determine how basically increases the wheel speed or the track speed based on how fast your vehicle's going. Blend scale is used to scale the blend based on how much the animation is played. So if you're moving, trying to think where you'd want it to change based on a variable. If you wanted to change from one pose to another with an infantry unit, or you wanted to make a transforming vehicle or something like that, you'd blend two animations based on a variable. So you'd have the actual animation where it transforms, and then you'd adjust the blend scale of that animation using a variable as it's transforming. So it might be start off running, where the running animation will have an initial blend percentage of 0, and then you might have the animation of it transforming into a car, and then the actual car motion, the wheels, etc., will have their initial blend percentage at 100. Pretty sure that, or it might be the other way around. But basically, you'd use that blend scale so that as your transformation animation is playing, as it's going from one mode to the other, the blend percentage is changing from being weighted on the running to being weighted on the wheels. So it's more or less basically stop playing one animation gradually and start playing the other one gradually. Basically, you'd also need to set this up by you'd have to specifically have the wheels not staled with your running animation and other sorts of jazz, so it's not really something to worry about too much. So yeah, where were we? Going with absolute time. I don't want it shifted by 180. Go to 0, it's facing the right way. So the shift just changes, won't let me change it now. Why are you doing that? The shift will let me change it, the default basically. So if I want it to, you know, shift the default position, so I set that to 0. And then come back to here. See, it's had its shift of 50, which in this case translates to about 50 degrees. I wanted it to shift 180. As you can see, I have some issues with the scale because that's not quite 180 degrees. So I hit calculate and voila, and it will fix the scale. I'll reset that back to 0 because I want the turret facing forward at 0. So try that again. 90 degrees. Voila. Now I'll just double check. Nope. Scale needs to be negative. As you can see, ta-da, magic. Rotating turret. Now what that variable, now to control that in Mod Studio, come to your animation table, and it's your I'm not actually using because that's coaxial. Let's open up ballistic tank gun. Shaman. Here we go. So as you can see here, that was the original. They're the variables there. Ah, freaking object editor. Anyway, freaking hell. Whatever, I'll just maximize again. You can see state name, which is the this is all our variables basically for controlling our animations. So we have a horizontal animation and a vertical animation variables, as well as their state for triggering firing effects and animations. So by putting in 75 horizontal there, that'll give that variable a value based on what direction the target's in, and then the same for the vertical. The state is down here somewhere. States has aim and fire. It only needs aim and fire because it only aim comes before, will always come before fire, and all it needs to do is specify. It just needs one state other than fire, so it can actually turn off. And then all it will do is on fire, it will trigger the fire effects. Yeah, that's where you put it in based on what you've entered in OE. Which is why it's easiest to copy an RGO, because then you also have the weapon files already set up. You do the same for vertical. You just find your vertical animation. Why it's set to hold at end, I don't know. So vertical absolute time. Where are we? Vertical 2020. I don't want 2020 because I've done a full rotation. 180, 180. Come back here. Calculate again. Negative scale again because it's going in the wrong direction. Oh, friggin' calculate. And it's moving up with positive, down with negative. It's working properly. And that's horizontal and vertical animation set up for your turret. As you can see here, 75mm vertical matches the variable that we're using to control our vertical animation. That's how you control your turrets. You do the same for the MGs, exactly the same. If you particularly actually not even, you just have that same setup regardless. If you wanted to have a specific animation playing, for example, in this Sherman's case, the barrel recoils when it fires. So when it fires, we should have an outgoing with condition of fire. Yep. So it fires, it comes back into incoming to fire, and then after it's fired, it goes back to aim. But that's how they've got the firing animation set up, the startup node of aim. If you want to go from scratch, you can. It's as simple as new node, start new tree. You've got a lot of choices. Just go, new child. Change its type up here. For random, change its probability of happening. But yeah, that's weapons. To set up track and wheel velocity, that sort of thing. Does this have a... Okay, so this is going tread left, tread right velocity. So I'm wondering how they've got that set up. Critical suspension. That one death, that one small velocity. Suspension left, front, up. Left, mid, up. Tread roll. Tread left velocity. Move, tread right velocity. I'm not quite sure where they're actually setting the velocities. Damn, I can't remember how to set these up now. Simplest, like the absolute lazy ass way of doing it. Let's just create a motion on startup of your track, looping, scale to velocity. In this case, you're using tread left and tread right, but they don't have a turn rate set up. So I'm assuming, well, I would assume that they have a behavior set up to control the left and right velocities, but I can't find it, which leads me to believe that they might actually have them hard-coded as actual variables within the engine. Yeah, you can check and just go speed scale with velocity, and then I won't be able to see it because there's no extra. Yeah, set that with the speed scale of velocity, and then do the same for your right track. The only issue with doing it quick way like this, just to make sure your things are animating correctly, or whatever, is obviously both tracks will play forward when you're going forward and play backwards when you're going backwards, but won't play properly when you're turning. So if you try with left and right, it might actually work properly. I think the general idea of doing the actual scaling, I'll work it out and put another video up of doing it properly. Let's see, what else can I show you with the motion tree? Done scaling animations with variables. Just covered transitions, some of these complex things. Basically, there's a lot of which don't have incoming, outgoing. That's just because it goes straight down to there and it stops. In this case it comes in and doesn't need to go any further. Some of these are actually startup. And basically, yeah, spawn state not off, spawn state off. So it will start there, but it'll switch once it's checked. Because it's run from top to bottom, it'll run there, and then it'll automatically run there, and that will switch if that condition's met as it goes down the list. Criticals are all set up in here. Any animations you want specifically set up with your criticals, like the engine flaps coming open. Where are we? Healthy on startup. Then you've got conditions of healthy on startup, and then the outgoing and incoming will keep looping that check. And then it goes green, yellow, red depending on condition. And then your engine flaps popping open. Hatch open and close is just animation set to play when that condition is met. In this case it's set on startup because it will always start closed. It goes out to open and checks if it's open, and whether it's open or not it'll go back to closed. So that will keep looping back and forth. A setup like that will keep looping back and forth until the condition's met, and then it will play that animation. Way open set as a loop. See if I find one that's they're all set to loops. Okay, so you have different loop modes. Exit in and hold end. Exit in will cancel that animation completely at the end, so it will jump back to its default pose. Hold end will stop playing the animation where it left off. So if you want a door to open, if you have that animation of the door just opening to where it's fully open, if you go hold it down when the animation stops playing, it'll hold where it is. And then, but if you have it exit, that door would open, the animation would finish, and then it would jump back to being shut again. You can use hold it end if you do a full motion of the door opening and closing as an animation. You can change the start time and end time, so that the halfway mark would be the door fully open. So you go hold it end and change your end time to 0.5, which would be halfway. And then from there you'd have the closing animation be from 0.5 to 1, and you'd hold it end again. Or you could even exit it end because it's back to its default pose anyway. And that's basically how you just hold something in place where it is. Short of specifically going through every single little detail, like there's so much you just play around with. You just go, okay, fresh tank, what do I want to do with it? I want the turret to work properly, I want it to move properly, I want the machine guns to aim properly, I want it to fire, I want my treads to move when the tank moves, and then get it in, make sure everything's working properly before you go too over the top of your effects or whatever. And just piece by piece go, okay, I want to add new effects, add the turret blast, whatever. But yeah, a lot of your states and everything are all triggered. All these can be triggered from within Mod Studio with where are we? Animator set states, animator set events, trigger events, animator set actions, trigger actions. Yeah, always just basically, it's fairly straightforward once you get the hang of it. It's only getting used to it that it can be difficult. Yeah, that's pretty much all parts of OE covered, short of actually going into specifics. Yeah, I think that's it. If anyone wants a video about anything specific within Object Editor, let me know and I'll whip one up. If you find anything that I've missed, or want extra answers for, let me know and I'll get back to you. Cheers.